Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to yet another episode of Before the Free Count, on a new type of episode, may I say. This week we are starting our new schedule, and this schedule involves a Raw recap that will be coming to you. I'm hoping this gets out to you on Tuesday night. I don't know if it will. If this does come out Wednesday, it's just the first time we're doing this, so maybe it does come out Wednesday this week. But hopefully you do get this on Tuesday. It will be Tuesday going forward. Every week we're going to have an episode where we just go over Raw on its own. Then we're going to have a SmackDown recap as well. And then of course for pay-per-views we will be going live on TikTok every single time going forward. And the recap video will then be recorded straight away and released automatically on to the podcast channel, and of course you can watch all these episodes live on YouTube as well. Are you ready?
We are Before the Free Count, wrestling for the fans, by the fans. Your number one place for wrestling news, rumors, and all things wrestling. Charlie and Callum are two regular guys that met at a wrestling convention and now are bonded for life.
Not word bonded.
And now they talk about wrestling in their spare time.
We're back. New series. This is Before the Free Count. So come along for the ride. But how are we all doing, guys? Welcome to the very first Raw recap. I am your host, like always, Charlie, and I'm very excited, really excited. We're starting off with the episode that aired last night, for those that are not aware. Yesterday was the 5th of May, so today's the 6th. Let's get started on what's been going down. First of all, we just want to quickly shout out our sponsors, WrestleCrate. Hi everyone, Charlie here. Sorry to take a bit of time out in the vlog for you, but I wanted to talk about our sponsor, the amazing WrestleCrate, as you may have heard here. What is a WrestleCrate? Well, let me tell you. WrestleCrate is a monthly subscription box for people like you, that love wrestling. What do you get in this box, you're probably wondering? Well, let me show you. Autographs from people like Daniel Bryan, Lita, Godfather, DDP, Kane, Sting, the Hardy Boys. Well, what else do you get? Well, maybe you get a cool poster like this one, cool key rings, even pretty cool Lucha Libre puzzles like this. Cool pins like these. And you also get awesome t-shirt just like all of these. It's the best part, because you come through us Before the Free Count, you can get yourself a free WrestleCrate with your first order just by going to www.wrestlecrate.co.uk and using the code BTTC, and you get a free box with your first order. How awesome does that sound? So what are you doing sticking around here? Go and get yourself one. Thank you so much for sponsoring our videos so far. But for now, let's get on with the show. Okay, so Raw last night, man, that was a good episode. I've got to say, I'm going to start off with the main event. I don't think you can't not start off with the main event. Oh my god, I think it's one of the best they've had in months for Raw. And I know that, after a time we get to a point where, it's a weekly show. They can't be putting out matches that should be as good as pay-per-views, but my god, last night. Let's just break it down how it all went about. So we start the show with Mr. Jey Uso kicking off the show, and just as he was about to start talking, we hear the great mighty voice of ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Paul Heyman himself comes down to the ring to speak to Jey Uso. Now, what does he got to say? He starts going on about, he congratulates him for getting to where he is, but says that, Jey says to him, you're the one that left Roman, and then, Paul goes off, gives him the spiel of how he actually didn't really leave him. Everything else kind of just turned on him. He was the one that made Roman relevant, which kind of got to agree with him on that. But still, I digress. He starts going into all these things and said that you look good with the championship, but the person that needs it is Seth frickin' Rollins, and tells him that his message is he will fight him for the World Heavyweight Champion any place, any time, anywhere. Now, I personally thought this was going to lead to, a Backlash match, considering it's this Saturday. and there's quite a few matches on the card, but there's nothing with Jay in yet. So I thought, maybe that's where we're going with this. But no, I was completely wrong. Jay jumps straight to him and goes, you know what? Any place, anytime, anywhere, how about here, right now, tonight? And so that set up our main event. And of course, it started off, it was absolutely fantastic. Seth Rollins delivers like always. Jey Uso is at that level now. It was some absolute arse-kicking wrestling we saw there. Some really, really good moves, very good back and forth. And then just as we thought, I don't know where this is going to go, Braun Strowman, oh my god, he got released. I'm talking about someone that was released. I do apologise. What the heck am I doing there? I do apologise, guys. But Braun Breaker, if I am correct now, Braun Breaker comes to the ring because, of course, he's involved in this new set. I don't know what you want to call them, like new group that I'd say Paul Heyman's putting together more than anyone. So, you know, we've got Braun Breaker coming down and starting to interfere with the match. He starts, you know, getting Jay out the ring. He's doing the run. He pushes him. But by the way, within the first 2 minutes of that match, Jay got Seth over the announcement table. That was awesome, by the way. That was absolutely incredible. And then, of course, just as we thought that Jay might be out, we start to hear the music of one of his biggest supporters and best friends in the WWE. No, not his brother. Which I still don't know why they're not doing that, considering Jimmy's not really doing anything at the moment. But, you know, I digress. We have Mr. Sami Zayn come running to the ring to come and give him a hand. And, you know, it starts to get dirty. It's getting heavier. The match is going on. Now you've got Braun versus Sami. You've got Paul trying to get out of the way. You've got Jay and Seth going at each other. You don't know what's going to happen. Both of them are trying to trick each other. Sami goes down. Braun distracts Jay. Paul distracts the referee. Seth goes in for the kill. And then just as you think he's going to get it, CM Punk's music hits. This is the first time we've seen him in, I think he did come out during the Raw after Mania, but this was the first time we've seen him since then. So it's been over 2 weeks. Very, very shocked, surprised to see him, especially on Monday Night Raw. I don't think he's a Monday. I could be wrong there, but I was pretty sure he was on SmackDown. So it's very good to see CM Punk now being involved in a Raw storyline. Maybe I've got that wrong. I do apologise if so. But just as we thought it was about to really kick off, they run out the ring. Seth's gone. Braun Breaker's gone. Paul's gone. And you see the three of them, and then you see the three of them, and you think, are we getting something here? Are we going to be getting, you know, maybe, are we building up to something like a War Games match here? A three-way tag match? You know, something like that coming? I don't know. But of course, Paul don't fight, so maybe there really is something in this story of there's a third man. We've heard all about this for quite a while now. There's a third guy. I swear to God, if this... the whole third guy thing, it's been done so many times. We all know where it started. But it seems like every time they put this new group together, or they put some kind of new set of people together, faction, that's the word I'm looking for. Whenever it looks like they're going to do that, everyone goes, oh, there's a third guy, oh, there's a fourth guy. I'm like, it doesn't have to be like that every time. We don't have to rinse and repeat. But this time, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there really is, because we're heading towards Backlash, or, you know, further down the line, Money at the Bank, SummerSlam, something like that. We could be getting that. But of course, yeah, then the match goes off air. And what they didn't show was Jay goes off and he starts celebrating. By the way, I don't know why he was celebrating, because this is one thing that I went back, I watched it again. The match didn't end. There was no disqualification that I saw. There was no count out or submission, so there was no win that way between Seth and Jay. There was no way I missed that. There was no disqualification. There was nothing that said, oh, the match has ended. So, are we going to see part 2 of that at some point? Maybe that's where we're going with Backlash. Maybe we're going to see that on Friday. But honestly, purely that would have made more sense to set that up, especially since it's this Saturday. But I don't know. I think the way that story's going is brilliant. I do absolutely love seeing this new, I wouldn't say a new side to Paul Heyman, but I'd just say that, like, the way that he's leading this group, and now Seth isn't, to have it the other way around for once, where Seth isn't coming out doing the talking and then he's just coming out doing the fighting. I'm not saying that they should do that all the time, but that was a really interesting way. Maybe they were trialing it, because you do see a lot with Paul Heyman's people that he works with, is that he does a lot of the talking for them. He's the advocate, that's his job. But I found it really interesting that they did it that way. Sorry, I've got to do this because it's, sorry about that, but that was driving me up the wall. Anyway, yeah, I found it really interesting that they went that route to get to the point last night. Very, very interesting. But where are we going from here? Is there a third man? I don't know. But, brilliant match. I think it was one of the best main events that Raw's had in months. Genuinely. It was absolutely fantastic. The match itself, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, especially with all the run-ins and stuff like that. And Jey is spectacular. Seth, I think, Seth to me is in the top 3 greatest in the last 10 years. And I know people have arguments about that, but to me, when the Shield came out, I just started watching WWE properly, and I remember I thought Roman looked cool. I thought Dean Ambrose or John Moxley looked like the more mental one, but I've always had this pull towards Seth Rollins. I don't know why, it just always was that way. And I remember for quite a few years I was very annoyed that they never really, they did when Roman had chemo and leukemia, but it never really went fully to the way I thought it would, with Seth being the face of the company. I remember in the very early days, especially when we were at like that point and he was the big dog and it weren't going over and it weren't working well. I remember just thinking, just cut your ties and go to Seth. But it worked out. Look at where Roman is now. It's probably one of the greatest of all times. But in my opinion, I think Seth's one of the best there has ever been. So yeah, that's that. Moving on from there though, we then went on to a match between Penter and JD McDonough, which I thought was a very interesting. Did I miss the memo on that match happening? Maybe I did. I think, actually, now I think about it, I think there was a poster that went out online the night of Rawler. So it's very weird, by the way. Just so people, if you haven't realised this, it's very weird because I try and stay up to watch half of Raw and then go to bed and I watch the other half, because over here it's on at like 1 a.m. and I can usually catch up with in the morning, but sometimes I forget like which posters went out, because that was like a day ago, and whereas for you it's like the same day, and whatever. When you have a sleep between something, it does make a big difference, guys. I also found it really weird when I was in America, just a quick pause on this, I found it really weird in America what time they actually start recording Raw. It was like 4 o'clock the venue'd open and it would start at like 5:30. I always thought it was like 7:30, 8, you started airing Raw. But apparently not, it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock, so it's done by like 8 o'clock, 9. Yeah, probably more 5:30 to 6:30, 6:30 to 7. Yeah, 8 o'clock it ends, which is mental, because it ends at like 3:30 in the morning over here in the UK. But anyway, moving on. We had a very interesting match between JD and Penter. Not one of Penter's best matches, I have to say. And it weren't a match that stood out for me, but it was more of a trying to get to a storytelling line on this. And of course we had Finn Balor and Carlito at the side of the ring supporting JD, but of course they were trying their antics and all of that, and of course they got sent away from the ring by the referee. The reason why I'm bringing this in is because we then about 20 minutes later cut to a promo backstage with Raquel Rodriguez, because Liv's not there at the moment, because it's either Liv or Rhea is off filming a film. And I can't remember which one is which. But we get to Rhea not being there later on. But Liv wasn't there, so, you know, they had... I just said her name. Roxanne Rodriguez with them. And then, of course, we had JD, Dirty Dom, Carlito. They were all there, Finn Balor. And they're sitting there talking, and they're going, why did you get kicked out of the ring? It's kind of like, what I find really interesting is that since Mania, it was Finn that kind of took over Judgment Day once Damien and Rhea left. But now that, you know, the cards are in Dom's hands, because he's got the title, it seems like Finn's getting pretty annoyed about that. And I think that's a really interesting place for us to carry on from, because, you know, we saw at Mania that he was happy for him, but he wasn't, you know, bursting with pride. Now, where is this going? I think we're leading, and I'm not going to say now, as in Backlash. There's no way it's going to happen at Backlash. I kind of want to say that maybe Finn, and I know that people will go, he's a older guy to get it, and he's been here longer, and it should go to the younger people that are on their way up. But I think we spoke about this before, about how Finn's chances of a title may never happen again, purely because of just purely the luck that he's had in the past with injuries when he has got the title. I think with the way they're going with this, I think there's actually a chance that Finn Balor could be a potential choice for Money in the Bank this year, because he doesn't seem very happy with Dom right now. I mean, what went down backstage was they were talking about it, and then AJ Styles comes back and says, by the way, I don't care what happens at Backlash, which he fumbled his lines on, but you know it happens, AJ. It happens when you're live and the adrenaline's running, but you know, he fumbled on them lines there. That was pretty funny. Anyway, he said, I don't care what happens at Backlash. My focus is I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, Dom, and for that Intercontinental. And he immediately cut to Dom, and he went, you know, I've got penter on my back. I've got, you know, I can't remember who the other person was. El Americano. And now I've got AJ Styles. I knew being a champion would be hard, but I didn't think it was going to be this hard, is what he said. And he then turns to Finn and he goes, maybe you could take care of AJ for me. And he snapped. He was not very happy at the beginning. He was, you know, he kind of let it out almost like how he really felt. He was going, oh, so my job is to now clean up all your crap now and defend you? Which seemed a bit, you know, it seemed like the honest Finn. But then, of course, he then went, I'm only joking, of course, I'll look after him for you. But what if he doesn't? You know? And that's why I think that Finn is starting to build something up that could lead to yet another separation in the Judgment Day. And it'll be interesting, because it's been nearly a year since Rhea and Damien left. It will be a year at SummerSlam with the Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley match, and the devastating end to that for Rhea. I still remember how shocked everyone was. I really thought he was going to go back to Rhea. I really did. But, you know, maybe not. Anyway, that's that match. Then we move on to A-Town Down Under. Now, Austin Theory was offered a match last week, and he didn't want it when he found out who it was with. And he said that I think you should give the match to my partner Grayson Waller. Of course, he knew who the fight was against. I believe we didn't. 100% we didn't. And Adam Pearce was quite shocked that he did that. And we realised why he was so shocked that he did that, because he made his partner fight the one, the only, and the return, may I say, because he's been off air for another month or so. Sheamus was back, and he got a huge reaction when his music hit. It was great to see Sheamus back. Brilliant match, but very interesting to see A-Town Down Under. Maybe Grayson Waller was not very happy that Austin Theory made him fight him. 14 chops in a row that man took from Sheamus. I thought, you know what, if that was my mate, I'd be pretty pissed as well. But yeah, maybe it's the end of A-Town Down Under. My problem is with that is, what do we do with the other, like we'd have a fight between them two, and then they'd go their separate ways, or whatever you want to call it. But what would you honestly do with Grayson Waller and Austin Theory at the moment? That'll be my question for this week. What would you do if they separated A-Town Down Under? And don't get me wrong, I know that it's not anywhere near the position Austin Theory was in 4 years ago, when he had Money in the Bank and he had old Vince backing him. But where would you put them to? What would you do? Would you send one of them off for the Intercontinental Championship? Would you send one of them off for the USA? I think for Theory, it kind of is at the point now where it's make or break. He needs another big run. Because I feel if not, he's going to get stuck in this lower mid-card drift where it'll be like, yeah, he's still here. And I kind of think, I weren't going to bring it up today, but I kind of think that's what happened to quite a lot of the people that were released on Friday or Saturday when it all started coming out. Very interesting list of people that have been released. Two that I remember at the top were Dakota Kai and Braun Strowman. Both of them I did take. It's quite a big surprise. Dakota Kai, I kind of understood, always injured. Maybe it's a case where it just wasn't working for them. Shotzi, another one, very, very, I was really shocked by Shotzi going. She really could have been something. Shayna Baszler was let go. Personally, I kind of saw that one coming. She hasn't really been in the spotlight. And I hate to say it, ever since Ronda Rousey left. Purely because I think that her way of fighting, the way of, her character and the way it was built, it was kind of needing someone that had that kind of MMA background so they could go a little bit harder on their matches. She worked quite well with some of the other people. Sonya Deville, again, once they took her away from being SmackDown manager or whatever it was, it kind of drifted off from there. Braun Strowman, I'm gutted. Really, really gutted with Braun Strowman leaving. He was honestly one of my favourites during the whole pandemic season. Some of the stuff he was doing, I remember when he was working with Alexa Bliss. I still think that was some of the best stuff he's done. He worked, the Strowman train, when that came out, everyone was still cheering. Love that. I guess it's kind of a case where you can't just rinse and repeat the same thing over and over again. But for him to be released only 2 years ago, and then to only just 3 years ago, and then to only just be re-signed again 2 years ago, and now be released again, I mean, I think that's... I don't know what to really say about that, because I think that it's not actually Strowman's fault. He was doing what they told him, and I think they put the nail in his coffin there. There was so much you could have done with him. By the way, this is another one. Why didn't we have any giant fights at any point in the last year? Because you've got Bronson Reed, you've got Otis. Fair enough, he's in Alpha Academy. You've got you have Braun Strowman you have Omos. There was a lot of giants that they could have really used in a really, really cool and really, really decent way, but they never put them together. And I just thought, why didn't we have any giant matches? Like Omos versus Braun, or Bronson Reed versus Otis, or both ways, or whatever you want to call it. I was really shocked that that never came to fruition at any point in the last year or so, especially with some of them, especially with Bronson Reed, actually, now I think about it. I know we haven't seen him for quite a while now because he's out I believe he's out injured, I could be wrong. But, there's a lot of people there they could have used. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. We've got to move on. Where were we? Of course, then, later in the show, we had Bad Black Becky Lynch, who of course came out and started wondering, why are you comparing me to, the bad guys? It's because something's gone around at the moment that she's being compared to Hulk Hogan. Don't really understand that one. If you want to explain it to me, please leave a comment or send us a message. Or if you're listening on Spotify, we always look. Why are people, why have you got a problem with Becky Lynch at the moment? But then, of course, I know she's playing a heel, but at the same time, apparently this is quite a personal thing as well that's been coming out. So I think she's mixing the two together, which is always great to see reality and fiction work well together in storylines. But, of course, then we had Lyra Valkyria come out, say lots of stuff like, you've done this, you've done that, you were the first Intercontinental Championship. Oh, whoops, no, you wasn't, that was me. Of course, that's all leading to a match at some point. I'm loving this new side of Becky. And I think what's really good is really putting over Lyra. It's very, very hard sometimes for them to get that right, mixture of trying to put someone else over whilst maintaining someone that's been in the game for so long without it, affecting their morale or the way that they look on TV. I think this is a perfect match. Maybe it's because they're both Irish. Maybe it's the look of the Irish that's working. But no, really enjoyed that promo. I thought it was brilliant. The little fight that kicked off afterwards was pretty good as well. She slammed her into the side of the wall where the audience is, didn't she? I thought, bloody hell. So yeah, but no, thought that was absolutely brilliant. Really interested to see where that's going. Again, I did say a few weeks ago that I think that we could be looking at Becky maybe joining, going back to what I said earlier, maybe we could be seeing Becky join Paul Heyman, Seth, and Bron Breakker. Maybe, you never know. That was the other giant, by the way, Bron Breakker. Why aren't you doing something with him? Why wasn't he having a Giants match? Bronson Reed was in the same position literally a year ago. But, they didn't do any of them. But, I digress like always. Anyway, really, really loved that. Thought that was fantastic. We then moved on to a match between Io Sky and Roxanne Perez. And it was a brilliant fight, like always. You've heard me say it before. I think that Io is on the run of her life at the moment. Brilliant matches, and it works really well. She's one of those people that you could put out there week after week defending that title, and you'd never, I don't think you'd ever be disappointed by any of the matches she does. No, and it's not affecting anywhere where she is on the card, if that makes any sense. Like, she could open the show, she could do what she did this time, be the one on before the main event. She could be literally the second match in, which is like what people mainly call the toilet match. But, all these matches that she's had, and I'm not just talking since WrestleMania, by the way, I'm talking since she won the title after Elimination Chamber. This entire run, fair enough, the storyline was running, and but even now it's still continuing and progressing in a way that I really think that she is going to be the top person. Like, when we look at the end of this year, I know we're only in May now, but I think when we look at the female superstars and your storylines and defeating matches and matches of the year, I think she's going to be, within the women's area, she's going to be at least in the top 3 of all of them categories this year when we come to a review, because we're 5 months into the year and I've got to say she has been on absolute fire. Really loved the match, but of course then the match ends, Roxanne Perez shakes her hand, she goes out the ring, and Io, goes to take her bow, and Julia comes behind her and attacks her. Of course, we've got no Rhea Ripley there to defend her because she's away. And I just, are we waiting for someone to come back? Are we going to get a tag team match between Io Sky and someone else very soon? Who's it going to be? I don't know. Maybe, now here's an idea, maybe it's someone like Tiffany Stratton. Because you could have the 2 women champions and the tag team champions. But I don't think that will happen because Becky's kind of going for the Intercontinental. And, I don't see Becky and Io Sky. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, I just don't see that flowing. Having said that, I remember when Becky announced she was pregnant, the person she gave the title to was Io Sky, and they were very happy. They had quite a few matches when she did eventually come back, and they were good. They worked quite well. In terms of them as a tag team, don't really see it happening. Tiffany Stratton, though, for some reason, don't know why, think that could work really well. Think that could work really, really well. But of course, then I have to move on to two other things we've got. So Rusev had a match this week. Rusev came back at the Raw after the Mania. So now every day's a Rusev day, as we always know. But of all the matches they could have put Rusev with to have his first match back on Raw in nearly 10 years, was against the Alpha Academy. Now, I haven't actually got a problem with the Alpha Academy. I think I'm one of the very few people that find them really entertaining. But I think that when whoever gets a match with them or finds out they're working with them, you're not in the top of what they're thinking about at the moment when it comes to your storyline and what you're doing. If you're given a match with Alpha Academy, you're not in the priority of, becoming one of the main guys at that time. Maybe it's just for that week, maybe it's just for the current situation building up to a pay-per-view because it's the week of, so they've got a lot to think about and they needed to get him out on TV. But for his first match back, really, the Alpha Academy? I mean, I understood it. It made sense in some ways. He destroyed Otis, and then Tozawa got in the ring, and he started going, "No, you and me here now." And I thought that was really funny that they did that. And of course, then Tozawa, got badly attacked. By the way, one thing I didn't mention, I know this is throwing it back nearly 2 weeks ago. Can I just, because I just keep on seeing it on TikTok and it makes me laugh every time I bloody see it. That R-Truth promo after, was it Royal Rumble or once he won? That was so funny. I know it was months ago, but if you haven't seen that clip of R-Truth talking to Tozawa and going, "You gotta be like my superhero, John Cena. Never give," and he just drops Tozawa and he just falls to the floor and he looks up and he goes, "Jay!" And he runs over to him and he goes, "Congratulations, man. I knew you'd do it. You're now king of the ring. Royal Rumble winner." That too? I know I've gone off there in my own little world, and you're probably listening to this thinking, what the hell is he on about? Honestly, just put in R-Truth, JEY, Royal Rumble. I don't know why I just thought that, because it's Tozawa, of course. This is why I'm not professional enough to do this. I just thought that was hysterical. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. And then before the main event, the last thing I've got to talk about tonight is this very interesting promo that we had between Pat McAfee and Gunther building to their match at Backlash this week. Now, I find this really interesting that they've actually fully gone down this route for a couple of reasons. One, it's very rare that commentators actually get matches or get involved in stuff purely because they're not supposed to be biased, but you know what I mean. You've always got like the heel the colour I can't talk today. The oh my God, come on. The coloured commentator and your black and white commentator, and one's on the hillside, one's... I find it really interesting when they do get the commentators involved. That's what I was trying to say there. Didn't put it together very well. So it was a very interesting thing to see. I also find it that maybe it's just me, but I'm actually starting to get from the way that he's talking about it that Michael Cole isn't happy that Pat's gone this far and is telling him just to leave it. Maybe, maybe something's up. I don't see Mike at 60 years old, Michael Cole making a return to the ring. Nah, that's not going to happen. But I found it interesting, some of the comments he was making this week. Thought it was he wasn't going, thank you for, defending me and all of this, but, just thought I'll point that out. But you had this really interesting back and forth between Gunther and Pat McAfee. Gunther said, I bet you enjoyed last week, it was your daughter's birthday. He was talking about how he's the ring general and all this stuff. I'm going to be honest, I can't really remember the words exactly of what each other said. It kind of became, and I'm not saying this was a bad promo by any means, that is not what I'm saying at all. It kind of became a bit of a blur within the first 2 minutes, because it was kind of just this very interesting thing of watching both these people knowing that this match needs to work for both their sakes, but only one of them can win. I am quite worried that there is a very high possibility, because of Gunther's position, that they're actually going to put over Pat McAfee. And if they do that, it seriously worries me, because I think that could be a really dangerous position to put Gunther in. And here's why. It was said quite a bit in the promo that 80% of the time that Gunther's been with the WWE, since he even signed with NXT, he's been a champion. He had the NXT championship, then he had the Intercontinental one, which he broke the record on and had for over 1,000 days. Then he won the World Championship, and the current World Championship he held the longest out of anyone since they brought the new one out. Now he has no championship. There's not really any of the group that he was part of, I can't remember the name of right now, but with Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser, Imperium. I couldn't, it can't really go back to that now, because Giovanni is, I don't know what the hell he's doing at the moment, and Ludwig Kaiser's kind of like trying to raise his stock in a way to get to like maybe a mid position. So it kind of leaves Gunther on his own, and he's a fantastic at promoting himself on the mic, and he's so good in that role. But I think with him without the belt, it's kind of like a delicious soup, but you're eating it with a spoon with holes in. It's just not gonna hold itself. He needs, I hate to say this, he needs a title, or he needs something where he just never gets defeated. I think that's the other way they could go about this, is that he just destroys whoever he is in the ring with. Personally, I think that this is going to be very interesting how people take this. I think Gunther could be what Goldberg wanted to be, with the skills that he didn't have. Goldberg, that is. Goldberg's a legend, by the way. But like someone that just never gets defeated. So I think that, it wouldn't have to be short matches as well. This is the thing. He's had some of the best matches I've ever seen live have been with Gunther in it. No word of lie. I was there. I was very lucky to be there when we had Sheamus versus Gunther at Clash of the Castle in Cardiff, Wales. Incredible match. I think last year's WrestleMania, when he had a fight with Sami Zayn, incredible match, absolutely insane. He's had some of the best matches I think I've seen in the last 5 years. If you gave me a list of the top, if you told me to make a list of the top 10 matches I've seen in the last 5 years, I genuinely think at least 3 of them would be with Gunther, and that's no word of a lie. So he's in this position where he is looked at like a genius, and the thing that I'm worried about is if just for some stupid reason they let Pat McAfee win purely because Gunther's the heel here. I don't want to say we're going to see him go down, but it worries me. If it was me, if I was in the creative chair, we're in with this. If I was in the creative chair right now and I was deciding what was going to go down at Backlash, I would put Gunther to get over on Pat McAfee within like a 10-15 minute fight. Not a bad fight, but just almost like Pat's got nothing and he's just thrown. If you've seen the Avengers, you know at the end when he's defeated, Loki's defeated, and the Hulk comes in, he starts screaming at him and he goes, "How dare you, I am a god," and he picks him up and he just goes puny god. It's hilarious, okay? That is what I think of when I think of people like Goldberg and Braun Strowman and Braun Breaker and Gunther. There's only a few people you can compare that over type of match to, and he's one of them. And I think that's the route. If you're not going to give him a title, that's the route you got to go down now, is make him unbeatable in every single way. Because if this "you tapped out" thing keeps on going, it's going to put him in such a weak position that there genuinely will be nothing they can do to be able to make fans think otherwise. And that's why I'm a little bit worried about it. But that is where we're going to end. I think that was a fantastic Raw this week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, by the way. As I said, we're going to be doing them weekly. And that's it for this week's episode of Raw Recap. Remember to come back on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. We will be releasing our SmackDown recap video, and if you are available, remember to follow me on TikTok at CrickCharlie, and you will find us doing live videos this Saturday for Backlash. But until then, we will see you next time.